Lawyers and cops of Reddit. What's the dumbest thing you've ever seen someone do to try to cover up a crime? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe, and I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like and comment something related to the topic. Let's begin. Story 1. A client was embezzling money from his engineering firm. He still had the embezzled funds in his possession and could have returned the money. He would have faced criminal liability, but we could have negotiated a plea deal that resulted in only a few months of probation. Given the circumstances, prison time was highly unlikely. The client didn't believe our advice. He was convinced he was going to prison and thought his best option was to return to his home country, Iran. The United States strictly prohibits the transfer of technology that can be used in nuclear programs to Iran. I explained all of this to him. He then tried to board a flight to Iran. In his luggage was a programmable logic controller, PLC, that his firm had been subcontracted by the federal government to develop. I don't know why he was taking that PLC with him, but it was there when he was pulled off the airplane in Stuttgart and taken into custody. He is now facing up to 20 years in federal prison for espionage and unlawful transfer of classified military technology to a hostile power. People, listen to your damn lawyers. Story 2. A guy I worked with was charged with dangerous driving after a police helicopter chase. He was facing a fine and a 1-year driving ban. His lawyer advised him to plead guilty. He ignored that advice and insisted on going to trial. His only defense was that the police didn't have any video evidence of the incident, as if that technicality would somehow get him off. During questioning, he even admitted to what he did, yet still tried to convince the court he wasn't guilty because there was no video recording. The court hit him with everything short of actual prison time. He ended up with a suspended sentence. The arresting officer even told him that if he'd just stopped, he would have only gotten a warning. But his attempt to play the system completely backfired and cost him dearly. Story 3. I'm a private insurance fraud investigator. I was working a case on a commercial and industrial electrician who claimed he couldn't work because a workplace injury had wrecked his back and left him barely able to get out of bed. I spent nearly 15 hours doing surveillance before we even figured out where he was actually living. The address he gave the insurance company was his mom's place, and he wasn't living there. Eventually, I found his real place. I got there before dawn and settled in. These cases can vary a lot. Sometimes you get lucky right away, but most of them are boring as hell, with claimants who never leave the house or just do mundane stuff that proves nothing. Within the first half hour, the guy comes out, gets in his car, and I follow him. He hits a Dunkin' Donuts, then heads to a commercial job site, a perfect setup for surveillance. That almost never happens. The site was right next to a public parking lot, giving me a completely unobstructed view. The building was still under construction, and I could clearly see this clown moving around doing everything. Lifting, pulling, sawing. All the things he claimed he couldn't physically do. Every day, either I or one of my colleagues would get about 10 hours of footage showing him working full days, hauling heavy materials, doing overhead wiring, carrying bundles of metal conduit and wire, never showing the slightest sign of pain. We had him, plain and simple. Most of our cases are boring, and even when we find light fraud, it rarely goes criminal. Usually it's people milking an actual injury for extra time or money. But this one, full-blown felony insurance fraud. When I wasn't running surveillance, I met with state insurance department investigators. They're the ones with arrest authority. They'd tell me what evidence they needed, I'd gather it, and they'd package it up into a nice clean case. My company got paid, and cases like this always earned me a glowing review. Then came Monday morning, the big day. I was parked outside his house before dawn with a subpoena for his employer, waiting for the arrest so I could serve it. 15 minutes before his usual departure time, 3 cars suddenly pull onto the street. A state trooper, a city cop, and an unmarked Chevy. The Chevy stops beside me, and out steps my guy from the insurance department in his windbreaker. He asks, "Is he home?" I say, "Yeah." He says, "Wait here." I get my camera ready and record them walking this idiot out of his house in handcuffs. Then I drive to the job site and serve the subpoena on his employer. They claim they need a few days to gather the payroll info. I tell them if I can't walk out with it today, I'll have my contact send a state trooper over to pick it up instead. Miraculously, the payroll files appear. So where's the stupid cover-up? I know, long setup, but trust me, this is the best part. Instead of keeping quiet and getting a lawyer like any sane person would, he doubles down on his stupidity. He gives investigators a sworn statement saying he doesn't get paid as an electrician, that he's just a volunteer. And yes, I said sworn statement, meaning he made the claim under oath before a notary. He managed to add perjury to his list of crimes before even going to trial. Any leverage he had was gone. By the time he finally got a lawyer, there was nothing left to fight. We had video, witnesses, payroll records contradicting his volunteer claim, timesheets in his handwriting, and even social media posts where he bragged about long workdays. We had him completely cornered. The DA offered him a plea deal: 1 year in jail, 2 years of probation, and restitution for the 3 years of benefits he'd stolen. They even offered not to charge him for perjury. But he refused. He didn't want any jail time and didn't think he should repay the insurance company for 6 years of fraud. So, we went to trial. His lawyer tried everything, claimed the chain of custody was invalid because I wasn't a peace officer, it wasn't required by law, then tried attacking my credibility by presenting a criminal record belonging to someone with the same first and last name as me. I looked at it and said, "That's not me." The guy turned pale. The middle name and date of birth were completely different. It was like watching a bad courtroom drama. Then the defendant himself takes the stand. The DA asks if he was getting paid or was a volunteer. The idiot says he wasn't paid. He was volunteering. He literally committed perjury again, right there in front of the jury. When confronted, he said to the judge, "What? I'm not going to change my story in court." Deliberations took about an hour, probably just long enough for the jurors to finish lunch. Guilty on all counts: perjury, false statement, and insurance fraud. 7 years total, with 3 on probation, served consecutively. He could have done 1 year in county jail and been out. Instead, he served 7, and got another year added when his girlfriend tried to smuggle weed into prison for him. 8 years total. Story 4. I'm not a cop or a lawyer, but I think this still counts. During my freshman year of college, my roommate and I were hanging out with our neighbor Kay and a few of his friends. 6 of us total, all under 21. We had 2 bottles of liquor, one was Kay's, the other was ours, and we're playing beer pong. One of the guys, let's call him Q, was being insanely loud and blasting music. We kept telling him to quiet down because we didn't want the RAs to show up. Of course, he didn't listen, and sure enough, there's a knock at the door. I realized who it was and told everyone to pour the alcohol down the drain while I stalled the RAs. I opened the door to talk to them, and right then Q loudly says, "I'm not getting caught with alcohol," and locks himself in the bathroom with all the liquor. Now we can't get rid of it, and the RAs can clearly hear him, so they have no choice but to call campus police. When the cops arrive, they start searching the room. Thankfully, my roommate was a legend. He'd managed to hide our bottle under the covers of Kay's bed right before Q's little panic attack, so we were safe. But Q wasn't so lucky. The cops quickly realize he's locked in the bathroom and tell him to come out. He refuses, which obviously looks sketchy. Unfortunately for him, the dorm has a master key for every room, so the RAs unlock the door. The cops go in, and a few seconds later, they start laughing. When Q barricaded himself in, he'd taken Kay's bottle with him. Normally that would have been smart. He could have just poured it down the drain. But being the absolute genius he was, he decided to drink the entire 5th instead. He'd only been in there for about 20 minutes. Not nearly enough time to safely drink that much. As soon as the cops open the door, Q tries to stand up and make a run for it. But he's so drunk he face plants straight onto the floor. He gets up, takes a sloppy swing at one of the officers, misses completely, and falls again. After the cops stop laughing, they cuff him and take him downtown, where he's charged with minor in possession and assaulting an officer. His stupidity somehow saved the rest of us from getting in trouble, which I guess I should be thankful for. But man, I can't help but pity Q for just how spectacularly dumb that whole stunt was. Story 5. Cop here. Honestly, most criminals are just plain stupid. Like, really stupid. They constantly do ridiculous things trying to dodge consequences and only end up making everything worse. Here are a few examples. What should have been a simple ticket for theft turned into multiple felonies when a woman tried to hide her ID in a shopping bag she'd used to steal stuff by shoving it into the back seat of my patrol car. It was a plastic bag, not exactly subtle. She had one of the longest criminal histories I've ever seen. She gets caught a lot. Then there was this kid I picked up on a juvenile probation warrant. While handcuffed, he decided to make a break for it. kicked out my back window, dove headfirst onto the pavement, and tried to jump a 6-foot fence. Still handcuffed. He made it halfway over before his shirtless half slid back down the fence, and that's where I grabbed him. He was covered in splinters. What could have been a quick ride home turned into several felony charges. And then there was the meth head who stole a Yoo-hoo, some Twinkies, and a Red Bull from a grocery store, while carrying over $1,000 in her purse. Security detained her and just wanted us to give her a trespass warning and escort her off the property. But the moment she saw us, she decided to run, shoving people out of the way and knocking over some random soccer mom. So now, instead of a warning, she's facing theft, assault, and robbery. All of this happened just in the last month. Story 6. Not really a cover-up, and I'm not a lawyer or a cop, but when I was in the Marines, I had to pick up a kid from the brig who'd pulled a knife on his team leader before disappearing over the weekend while our battalion was on liberty. He'd spent a few days wandering around LA like a homeless guy. Well, a homeless guy carrying 8 knives in his backpack. Anyway, Monday rolls around, and he takes a train back to Oceanside. He walks onto base and quickly realizes he won't make it back to our part of base before being declared UA, unauthorized absence. In a full-blown panic, he spots a military police car parked on the side of the road. So what does he do? He walks up to the MP, pulls out a knife, and tells him to take him to the north end of base now. The MP, of course, pulls his gun, and the kid ends up in the brig. When I heard the story, I couldn't believe it. I asked him, "Did it ever occur to you that the cop was just sitting there because he had nothing better to do? If you'd asked nicely, he probably would have driven you or at least called your command so you wouldn't get in trouble." The kid, looking down, muttered, "I just wasn't thinking, Sergeant." The crazy part? The team leader he originally pulled the knife on had been drunk and hazing him, so the kid wouldn't have been in trouble at all for that incident. But pulling a knife on a cop? Man, just geez. Story 7. Not exactly cover-ups, but definitely some of the dumbest attempts to get away with a crime I've ever seen. I was a prosecutor in Cuyahoga County about 10 years ago. Back then, we had to read police reports out loud to defense counsel, a complete waste of time, but it was what the boss wanted. One case involved an F5 possession charge for crack. The guy had a single small rock. Cases like that usually end in a plea deal, maybe probation and time served unless the person has a big record. Anyway, according to the report, this defendant walks into a convenience store in suburban Cleveland, clearly under the influence of something. He's acting weird, so the clerk keeps an eye on him. Sure enough, he shoplifts something. I waited to tell the defense attorney what he stole for dramatic effect. The clerk confronts him, they scuffle, and right there I'm already seeing another potential charge, robbery. The guy manages to get away and jumps into his car. Police respond and chase him. Now we're adding fleeing and eluding to the list. That's serious time if it all gets indicted together. Of course, being high doesn't do much for his driving skills, and he ends up crashing. When police search the wrecked car, they find a tiny crack rock. The defense attorney starts arguing that there's no way his client even knew it was there and that we'd better prepare for trial. That's when I dropped the punchline. His client stole Chore Boy, the metallic cleaning scrubber that crack users stuff into pipes to hold the rock in place. It's basically the crack equivalent of being caught with rolling papers. The lawyer just shook his head and said he'd go talk to his client about taking the plea. Then there was another case, CPD Vice Unit running a prostitution sting. Undercover officer posing as the prostitute. If convicted, the guy would have gotten probation at worst. He pulls up, they make the deal, and as soon as the support units move in, he panics, floors it, and rams multiple police cars. One officer even got dragged while hanging onto the window. So instead of a simple solicitation charge, he's now looking at multiple counts of felonious assault on a police officer, which carried 3 to 10 years in prison at the time. And to top it off, when they arrested him, he had a couple of small crack rocks in his pocket. Story 8. Police officer here. Not exactly a cover-up, but still a great story. About 15 years ago, we got a call for a burglary. The suspect had broken in by smashing a window on the fire escape and climbing into the apartment. While we were talking to the victim and checking the scene, I looked behind a dresser near the window, and there on the floor was a wallet. Inside was a driver's license belonging to a guy who lived across the street. The apartment owner said he'd never seen the guy before and had no idea who he was. The victim told us the only thing of real value he owned was missing. a 7-inch solid gold Jesus on a cross, hanging from a gold chain with emerald eyes and the word forgiven spelled out in rubies at the bottom. A pretty distinctive, custom-made piece. He even had Polaroids of himself wearing it at parties. This was before smartphones, so that was his proof. So the three of us head across the street to the address on the license and knock on the door. The guy opens it, wearing the stolen gold Jesus around his neck. He looks at us and, with a straight face, says, "Yes, can I help you gentlemen with something?" A few months later, after his arrest and conviction, the rightful owner came by the precinct wearing his recovered gold chain and brought a couple of pizzas to thank us for getting it back. Stupid criminals, indeed. Story 9. When I worked as a correctional officer, I was doing a strip search on an inmate. When he turned around and bent over, I saw a small balloon partially sticking out of his backside. I asked him what it was, and once he realized it had been spotted, he pulled it out and turned to face me. I ordered him to put it on the ground and step back. He looked at me, then at the balloon in his hand, and before I could even finish saying, "Don't you dare do it," he threw the disgusting balloon into his mouth and swallowed it. He was immediately placed in a dry cell, no toilet or sink, and monitored 24/7. He had to use plastic bags to relieve himself until the balloon was recovered. After a few days, it finally came out. It contained less than a gram of pot, and he got written up for it. I still shake my head whenever I think about that guy. The look of pure defiance and desperation on his face right before he swallowed something that had literally just come out of his own body, all to protect less than a gram of weed. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share a similar story or anything you'd like to say in the comments. See you next time.